Okay, good evening, students. I think last week I started with the introduction part of microeconomics and macroeconomics. I think those concepts are clear, or you want me to just brief once again, or just we want to just shall we recap once again? Any doubts in that? Otherwise, I can continue with the other part of the lesson. What do you say?
Continue, madam.
Yeah, okay, fine. So we started with micro and macroeconomics, where I mentioned that micro is mainly concerned with one individual family, and macroeconomics refers to the entire economy as a whole. Today we will talk about something called as uses and transfer of resources, or what do you mean by mobilization of resources? Now, when we say mobilization of resources, every country as such, that is the topic here is we talk about is Indian economy and mobilization of the resources, or the other word that is used is uses and transfer of the resources. Now, what do you mean by the word called as mobilization? That is, mobilization is a process of assembling and organizing the things for ready use for achieving a collective goal. That means you have set up a goal saying that I want to achieve a growth rate of 10%, 9%. Yes. Any doubts?
Please continue, ma'am.
Yeah. So, what is mobilizing is that where, for example, you set a goal called as you want to achieve 9% growth or 8% growth. Now, how do you achieve that growth? Is that by trying to assemble what all resources are required in order to achieve that goal, and first assemble them and organize them so that you go to achieve that particular goal. So, that is the main objective of this entire concept when we talk. So when we say that, so what are the other aspects we take into consideration? That means every country will have certain resources. One second. So it is a process of assembling and organizing. You remember that definition. So the term mobilization means it is the freeing up of the locked resources. That means the government has to take into consideration what are the resources that are there and try to allocate them to those particular sectors by which you will be able to achieve the goal or try to put them together and go towards the production as such. So every country, any country, for example, you have something called as domestic resources. Now, domestic resources are also referred to as economic resources, but sometimes they are not available for collective use. That means the entire country utilizing is not possible. So the percentage of resources used when compared to their potential is very low. This is a very important line you have to understand in economics. What is that line? Is that what is the percentage of resources we are using and actually what is the potential they have. Now when I'm saying potential, I mean to say that that is they have much more capacity. That means suppose if they have 50% capacity to satisfy, we are only utilizing something called as 10% or 30%, which is considered to be low. So the potential with which they can serve and the real use is a lot of gap is there. This is there in our economy. So for a country to go, identification and mobilization of the resources, first and foremost is identification. Where do you find the resources and how do you mobilize them? So how do you mobilize the resources is that you should have something called as a resource plan. What is resource planning is that now any country, for example, especially we will not go to any country, we will only take up India. Now if you take up India, certain states are mineral rich states, some states do not have minerals only. So how are you going to get balanced economic development is that where you try to mobilize all these resources from different states or from surplus states and try to accommodate with the scarce states so that you will be able to get a balanced economic development. This is what you call it as mobilization of resources, which can be the help of something called as planning. You call it as resource planning or we call it as 5-year plans also. Yes. So the first task is that identification of the resources. Where do you find the resources? Now, when we say resources, we can classify them into three parts also. We can call it as economic resources, natural resources, human resources, and financial resources. What are natural resources? Resources which are available naturally like coal, natural gas, petroleum, water, all these are natural resources. Now, when I'm talking about human resources, what do I mean by human resources? That means the people are educated, the people who have intellectual capacity, the people who are skilled, and also the labor force. These are all called as human resources. Financial resources is that where you have the capital in order to see that. See, you have the resources, you have the people, but the most important thing is capital. How do you get the money? That means through taxation, proper taxation policies that you will be able to implement your plans, whatever it is. So intellectual capacity is very, very important as such. So the other thing is that the proper utilization. Suppose if you are using your resources properly, what is that it leads to? It leads to something called as generation of economic resources. What are economic resources? That means savings, investment, capital, tax, etc. While mobilization is considered, the mobilization of economic resources should also be studied. Both are, that's what I'm telling you. When I'm talking about natural resources, you should also have the resources, but at the same time, you should also have the money. So once again, I'll repeat, what are economic resources? Savings, investment, investment in capital, you call it as tax. These are the three things which are called as economic resources. Natural resources, human resources, financial resources, economic resources. Am I clear with all the four resources, or do you want me to repeat once again?
No, madam, please continue.
Can you please repeat?
Which one you want me to repeat, ma? Yeah. So
Yes,
what are natural resources? Resources which are found in the nature, that is water, petroleum, coal, whatever it is, you call it as natural resources. What are human resources? Human resources are the people of the country where they should be educated, they should be trained, skilled, intellectually. That means we talk about human resources in different manners. We call it as technical experts, we call them as skilled experts, intellectual people, then you call as labor forces. These are all the various types. That means the government should be able to see that their human resources are becoming assets for any country. Human resources are the most important assets. You take the example of Japan. Japan does not have any natural resources, but still it is one of the most industrialized countries of the world. It is only because of the human resources, because they have trained their people so much. So human resources play a very important role. Third one is I talked about financial resources. That means in order to achieve any project, in order to implement any project, you require money. So where do you get the finance from? That means the taxes and also the production and various other things. How does the government will be able to get the money? The third thing we talked about, the fourth one I talked about is economic resources. What are economic resources? Economic resources are your savings of the people, investment capital, tax. What do you mean by investment capital? That means the people who invest in companies or invest in industries or whatever it is, then you call it as investment capital. And the tax is the income tax and the various other taxes which the people pay to the government. These are all called as economic resources. So when we are talking about mobilization of natural resources, we are also supposed to talk about the financial resources. Also. Am I clear with this now?
yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now, India is a country with sufficient resources, but due to various policy wrong decisions, we are importing coal, we are importing iron. These two are considered to be the most important resources which India has abundant, but still we import them. Why are we doing is that our policy matters is one of the things. This is also resulting in current account deficit. That means you don't have the money unnecessarily you are spending. So when I'm talking about mobilization of resources, what are the important things that we take into consideration? So organizing human potential is very important. The present situation is that how do you organize your human potential for the growth of India? For example, we are the second largest populated country in the world. That means at present India should concentrate on something called as utilizing the skill of the people. That is the reason why a number of schemes have been launched by the government of India, like What are the new schemes?
Skill India.
Okay, very good. Skill India, Startup India, Atmanirbharta. These are all the programs. That means how India is eyeing to use its human resource, so that human resource potential, and we also have the advantage of demographic dividend also. What is the population? That means India has the largest, youngest population for any country. Children, the young population is very important. Working age population is very important. You must be knowing that also. When we talk about the population, we divide it into three categories. We call it as the infants, the working age population, and the older generation. So for any country, the middle group should always be more, so that it is advantageous. That means if you are having more working population, that means your productivity will be increasing. So aging population will be a burden for the government because they are the retired people. The government has to look after their production, their contribution will be nothing. Whereas if you have the working age population, or if you have the younger generation, children are more, that means in future at least there is a hope that the country will be able to get the services as such. So India can use this also, demography. So when we are talking about the demographic, the important things that we can talk about. So mobilization of resources highlights the need to empower human resources. First and foremost is that we should empower them with training, education, skill. Second one is that weaker sections, especially you should be able to bring them into the mainstream. SC, ST, BC, women, these are the people who should be brought along with that. Then only development is possible. If you try to ignore them and try to improve the other sector, India can never be called as a developed country. Third one is that employment opportunities for human resources. That means how do you create employment opportunities? Is that I'll tell you one thing, children. There is something called as three sectors. How many of you know the three sectors? What are the three sectors of the economy?
Primary, secondary, and tertiary.
Tertiary
Pri-
sectors. Yeah, primary sector is
Agriculture.
okay. Secondary,
Industry.
secondary is industries, and then you have the tertiary industry, which is a services sector. Now, in any country, for example, if you take all the European countries, the number of people employed in the secondary sector and the tertiary sector is very high, 95% to 90%, whereas India employs very less. Why? Can anyone tell me why? Because to work in a secondary sector and a tertiary sector, you require certain technical aspects and skills of the people. So you are supposed to develop, the government should be able to develop the skills among the people so that they are suitable for all the new jobs which are coming up as such. That is the reason why now we have the national education policy. Children, because students, you are all preparing for IAS, so you should also know about the NEP, National Educational Policy, the new educational policy which has been released, which stresses more on skill subjects, giving importance rather than to theory and rote learning. Now they want to give, or they want to see that the students also will become skill-based education is being provided. So that is how the government is trying to see that we will be able to get the people properly trained and developed also. One second. So the second one is right employment opportunities. Wherever there is a skill demand for the job, skill development should be there. Then it is talking about only we are using engineers, doctors, and scientists. So we are supposed to bring about other skilled people which are required for the country also. This is as far as human resources is concerned. Then how do you mobilize your financial resources? How do you get the money? If a country needs to grow, more goods should be produced. If the how is the production done? What are the three sectors that will be producing the goods? What are the three sectors that will be producing the goods for the entire country? How do they meet the demands of our country? What is our economy? Model of our economy? Students, if you don't know this, how children, what is the model of our economy? Which economy ours is? What are the types of economies we have? Huh? What? You don't know? Capitalist economy, socialist economy, and mixed economy. What is our economy?
Mixed economy, madam.
The mixed economy consisting of
Capitalistic and socialistic both.
no. When I say mixed economy, we talk about what the two sectors we have: public sector and private sector.
Private sector.
And now we have one more sector also. One more thing that has come, that is the PPP. What is PPP?
Public-private partnership.
Very good. Public-private partnership. So now the production is done by three. Either it is a public sector, private sector, or it is a PPP mode. But for that, economic resources should be mobilized. That means savings, investment capital, taxes required. Now in India, we have good savings rates, domestic investments. But what is a major problem in India is that Indians try to invest in non-productive sectors. What are the non-productive? Indians are investing more.
Ma'am, can you please repeat your voice is not audible?
It's not audible. Huh? 1 second. Okay. So we are talking about the mobilization of financial resources. So if a country is producing the goods, it is producing through three sectors. Am I clear now? Yes, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Now you're
Am I clear? Yeah. So the three sectors are public sector, private sector, and the PPP, that is the public-private mode. Now, in order to produce the goods, you require economic resources. What are economic resources? Once again, is that in our country, of course, savings are there, domestic investment is there. But the problem is that where are we investing? The Indians usually invest in non or less productive assets like gold and consumer durables. That means we try to invest or buy more of gold, or we try to invest in durables like cars or TVs or mobiles or whatever it is, but we don't invest in agriculture, industry, or share market. All these are certain things where we lack. We don't invest at all. That is a major problem that we find in our country. So, if India needs to grow, there has to be investments in agriculture and industry or manufacturing services. That means we should be having more of manufacturing industries as such, by which our economic growth can be increasing. So in India, tax collected is very less. Because our per capita income is very less, the tax collected is also very less in our country. So this has to be widened. That means these are the suggestions that are given in order to say that how do you mobilize economic resources, is that the tax base has to be widened. More number of people should be included, and more number of people, or the tax rate should be increased as such. Then the four factors of production. Can anyone tell me what are the factors of production?
Land, labor, capital.
Land, labor, capital, and organization should be organized properly, mobilized properly as such. This is the first concept we talk about. Unless you try to get them together, it is not possible. And there should be an atmosphere for growth and investment. So investment should be increased. Indians should encourage, or they should be encouraged to invest more as such. This is another aspect which is troubling our country as such. Then, in the modern capitalistic society, we call it as free flowing and easier. That means now, because we have a private sector also, the resources can be mobilized fast rather than compared to our traditional sector like a socialistic pattern of society. So these are all certain things which have to be streamlined properly and looked into properly as such. Then there are various resource needs in starting the organization. Suppose if you want to start an industry, you require land, labor, capital, technology, so many other things also. Societal acceptancy and also permissions from the government also. But sometimes it so happens that if you get the land, you won't get the capital, you won't get the labor properly, or you won't get the technology. Sometimes the mix of the resources is not at all correct. So this also have to be taken into consideration. 1 second. Yeah. So the second one is that we talk about is organizations have to be given all these importance. Then the next important, of course, we discuss the people also more important, and the most important thing Indians have to do is that their investment in productive assets is very, very important. And they are not investing. If they invest, then the economic resources also will be increasing. This part is okay.
Yes, madam.
Next one is that how does the public sector get the mobilizing the domestic resources? Is one is taxation, the other one is a public revenue generation by investing in social services and infrastructure. That means they construct a, what do you call it, as a flyover, or they construct something and they collect some tax from that. That is how they invest and they get back also. Plus, we also pay some taxes also. That is how the public sector will be able to get the resources. Then, in the private sector, how does it do? It will be mobilizing the savings of the households and the firms through financial intermediaries which allocate these resources to investment in productive activities. I can tell you that the banks will be acting as intermediaries where we deposit the money, and that money is given by the bank as loans to industries and other sectors. That means who is acting as the mediary here is the banks or the financial intermediaries. One more is the share markets. You must have having the idea of share market, everyone. Yeah, people will be purchasing the shares. That is also, that means either you save your money in the bank, you open an account, you put all your money in the bank, and the banks will be giving the loans to the industries. The second route is that you can go to a share market, you can purchase the shares and become the shareholders of the industry. That is how the private sector will be able to get the money. Am I clear with this? How many of you know what is a share and how do they purchase the shares? You have an idea, everyone?
Yes, madam.
All have the idea. Others also? Only Sai Charan is answering. What about others? Am I clear, or should I give the explanation for that also? So two things I told here. How does public sector mobilize resources? I said taxation and public revenue generation for investment in social services and infrastructure. Second one is how does a private sector get the money? Through the financial intermediaries. Who are the financial intermediaries here? Bank is a financial intermediary. Share market is also a financial intermediary. Okay. Then, so what did we discuss till now is that what do you mean by mobilization of resources? Is mobilization of natural, human, and financial resources. So, what are the problems that we face when we talk about these resources? Is that sometimes it is that the resources may be available, may not be available. How is the allocation done? What are the various policies that are adopted by the government? Or these are certain things which are very important that we have to take into consideration. Am I clear with this part of the lesson? My use and transfer of resources. This is a very important aspect which you call it as mobilization of resources as far as your UPSC prelims is concerned. Am I clear with this?
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am.
Points we discussed. What is mobilization? Isn't fast. What is mobilization is? Identification. Yes, ma'am. Identification and collection of resources, and also organizing them properly so that you will be able to achieve a collective goal. This should be the main line in your mind when I say mobilization is identification and allocation of these resources for achieving a collective goal. So when we are talking about mobilization, we talk about natural resources, human resources, financial resources, and economic resources. Still here, am I clear with that? Can I go to the next topic? I should get an answer.
Yes, madam. Please.
So next we will talk about something called as economic growth versus economic development. There is always a wrong notion saying that economic growth or growth and development are one and the same. But there is a lot of difference between economic growth and economic development. Okay, before going into that, you must be having an idea about GDP. What is the full form of GDP?
Gross development product.
Okay, how do you calculate GDP? What is GDP? Okay, I'm not asking calculation. What do you mean by GDP? It is the money value of all the goods and services produced in a year. Now, there are two things in this, nominal GDP and real GDP. Now, when I say nominal GDP, it is always calculated at the current market prices. What is the price at present? That is called as nominal GDP. What is real GDP is that we take a base year. For example, the best year we take, which has been considered to be the best mark, or the GDP was really very good for the country, that we take the base year and compare with this present GDP, then we'll know whether there is growth or development. So when I'm talking about this nominal GDP and real GDP, this is the concept you have to understand properly. Nominal GDP is calculated at current market prices, and real GDP is calculated by taking one base year and comparing with that performance. Am I clear with this? Because why nominal GDP is not correct is that it does not indicate the real performance of the economy as the prices changes over the time. So that's why we cannot take it as the correct GDP. Am I clear with that nominal GDP? What is GDP? I said once again, money value of all the goods and services produced. Always remember, GDP is calculated only one financial year. The goods and services produced by all the three sectors. That is called as GDP. That is why gross domestic product produced in the country, sold within the country is GDP. What is GNP?
Gross net product.
Okay, gross national product also you call it as, or gross net product. What is the difference between GDP and GNP? Any idea? GNP also takes into consideration the exports and the imports also, that takes into consideration. GDP does not take exports and imports. It only takes the goods which are produced in the country. That is a major difference between GNP and GDP. Am I clear? Yeah. Now, when you take, for example, I'll give you one example how it is said why GDP, nominal GDP is wrong. Suppose India produced cars in its economy. For example, in the year 2016, India produced 100 cars, which were sold at 1 lakh each. So what is GDP here? Calculate and tell me. Produced 100 cars, sold at 1 lakh each. So what is the GDP? Yeah, can anyone tell me? I said India produced 100 cars. Each one was sold at 1 lakh. So what is the GDP in this case?
1 crore.
100 into
100 into 1 lakh 1 crore.
So that is the
GDP.
That's what. That is one, we talk it as GDP. This is nominal GDP. But in the year 2017, supposedly due to demonetization, India produced only 90 cars. Okay. But their price has risen to 15,000, 1 lakh 15,000. India's GDP in 2017 is how much?
100 into 1 lakh 50,000.
Yes.
1 crore 50 lakh.
90 cars. That means the number of cars produced has come down, but the price has been increased. The price has been increased. So when you talk about this, the increase from the earlier to the present one is the nominal GDP. That means the GDP of India has risen not because we produce more units of car, but because the prices of the car has increased. Now, why I gave you this example is that in the first one, I said that they were sold at 1 lakh. Then after that, the price was increased, but the number of cars produced were less. So what increased here is that the price increased, but the number of units produced were decreased. This is what you call it as nominal GDP. The GDP of India has risen not because of more units, but because the prices of car has been increased. Am I clear with this example? Yes, children?
Yes, madam. Yes.
Hello? Am I clear or not? Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sai Charan, am I clear? Yeah.
Yes, madam.
Then,
Yes, yes.
what is real GDP then? Yeah, very good. The real GDP is calculated as the money value of all the goods and services produced in a year using the constant set of market prices that have prevailed in the certain chosen base year. That means they take a base year and they try to compare it. That is what you call it as the real GDP. I'll repeat once again. Real GDP is calculated as the money value of all the goods and services produced in a year using the constant set of market prices. That means they may take one particular year where everything was constant. That means that particular year was very good. Maybe the monsoon was very good, the industries performed very well, agriculture performed very well, tertiary sector performed very well, and it was a very good year for the country. That one will be taken as a base year. Okay. Now, the real GDP is calculated at fixed set of prices so that only the changes in real output or real production of goods and services is calculated. So, in real GDP, we take only the real production. We don't take the prices. We only take the production. Whether we were able to increase the production or not is real GDP. Am I clear with that? So, once again, I'll give you the example. You can understand that. So once again, I say that India produced how many cars in 2016? I said,
100 cars.
okay, we said
100
100
cars with
cars
1 lakh
at a
rupees.
price value of 1 lakh. Okay, okay, we said that. In the year 2000, so in 2000, supposedly we talked about demonetization. How many cars were produced? 90 cars. So if we take the year, okay, very good. If we take the year 2011 and 12 as the base year, I am telling you, taking the base year of 2011 and 12, okay, and assumes that the price of the car in that year was rupees 90,000. So real GDP will be how much then? Can anyone calculate and tell me? Real GDP will be 90 cars, 90,000. So it will go up to 81. Yeah, how much it will be? Can anyone calculate and tell me? 90 cars, 90,000.
81 lakhs.
Okay, very good. So what was the nominal GDP? What was the nominal GDP?
One crore.
In the example I gave you, what was earlier? 90, that 35 we said. So it is 1 crore 35,000. That is a nominal GDP, and real GDP is how much now? 81 lakhs. So the difference is due to the prices which have risen from 90,000 in the base year to 15 lakhs in the current year. So this is the difference when I'm talking about. So nominal GDP will take into consideration on the basis of prices. Real GDP will take into consideration the production, output of production, whether the production increased or not. Am I clear with this difference between nominal GDP and real GDP? I hope I'm clear. Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, these are the things we talk about. Now, one more example I can give is that is not a perfect measure of well-being. Why you say that it is not correct example is that due to unemployment, network is not clear. Okay. Now, suppose due to unemployment in the country, the youth will be moving towards them. Naturally, when you are having a lot of unemployment in the country, youth are not able to find, they will involve in all sorts of crime. To overcome the crime rate, what will the government do? They will hire more and more personnel, police people. That means due to the hiring of this, economic activity will increase and the newly personnel will be given salaries which they will spend on purchasing of goods and services. Hence, production of goods and services will increase. The final outcome is increase the GDP. This is the situation I'm telling you. Unemployment, youth move towards the crime. To control the crime, police personnel has been increased. Now, these people will be paid the salaries, and these people in turn will be spending the money in purchasing of the consumer products. Okay. Now, when their demand is increased, naturally there will also be an increase in the production of goods and services, which will result in an increase in the GDP. But the question here is that, is this increase in GDP considered to be worth? Is it correct? Is it the correct way of growth of GDP or wrong?
No,
You
no,
should guess
madam.
this and tell me. It is wrong. It is
No.
wrong. This is not worth, because the GDP has increased because of increase in crime, not because of employment or not because of any good reasons. It is only because of the crime rate that has been increased, the GDP has increased. So this also cannot be taken as. So the GDP fails to capture the deteriorating situation. Instead of that, you create more jobs, give jobs to the unemployed people, create more economic activity, that is considered to be the correct one. Am I clear, everyone? This concept is clear. So when we are taking the examples of this, for example, we can have negative as well as positive aspects also. Like, for example, you take the Western Ghats. Is the time getting over? Is the time remaining, Shailija?
Still was there, madam.
We will
Shall
join
we
once again.
leave and come back? Yeah,
Yeah.
I will join once again.
Yes, yes.
Little more is there. I'll
Then,
complete that,
yeah.
then we can.
We can end.
Yeah.
We'll join again.